Lovely. Thank you, Rhoda. Thank you, and welcome. Namaste. Yeah, we got it. So I just wanted to say welcome to everyone here, and as always, I'm really grateful to be here, really glad to be here with you all. And I don't have anything particular that is really jumping out at me to speak about this evening. So I thought I would just open it up and see if anyone has anything they want to ask or share, or if you have anything going on that you want to talk through or celebrate, or if you're having any particular challenge right now. So Shaista, you have your hand up there. Do you want to kick us off, get us started?
Hi, sorry, I was unmuted. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, just a bit of sore throat. Okay, so with me, I guess everything is just expediting, like, I've no words, but it's like, there's a lot of peace, there's I know I am here and this is it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other stuff is coming up and it's not as bad as before where I'm running away. So that's a good news.
Yeah.
I'm just present and but there's a lot of like reaction. I'm becoming very reactive, especially to people around me.
In what way? Do you mean like emotions coming up, or?
So emotions are coming up, but I think it's because a lot of contemplation going on, and because now with your teaching, I'm understanding myself better. Mm-hmm. So I know that these emotions are definitely, these are the core beliefs you say. So the contemplation happens naturally, but there's a lot of, so I have a very controlling personality, or I would say had, so that control is coming. Mm-hmm. So I'm still trying to sort of control things. So that shows that I have fear somewhere.
Yeah, let's look at that then. Why do you think, why would we be trying to control still? What, you mentioned fear, but let's just sort of dive into that in case there's something else there. Well, what reason would we have for trying to control our environment? I mean, fear is something you've mentioned there, but can you think of anything else as well? Or
so there is anger. That anger is quite big also. And when I contemplate and ask questions about anger, that what is it there I need to see, or what is anger trying to tell me, or what's underneath this emotion, what belief do I have here, and often it's unworthiness is there, and seeking approvals from others, as if people to agree with me, which now is, I can see more, but it's still there. It has lessened a lot, but you're seeking approvals from people.
Do you feel that is still the kind of the major motivation behind this controlling then? Is that what you're sort of looking for? If I can get things the way I want them to be, if I can be the way I want to be, if I can be who I want to be, then people are going to give me this approval that I'm seeking. Is that kind of how you feel? What's the major factor behind it?
I think it's because if what I could figure out is because I don't feel enough, like just worthy, or you can say just enough within myself as myself. I thought I was, but clearly I'm not. I'm not feeling 100% here, which is you can call it a worthiness or issue, or otherwise why would I seek people's approval or to snap at people in a way in a way of controlling them, people around me.
For me, it just kind of it got clearer that less and less was that way of trying to get what I want. Less and less was that effective, and also, trying to change other people. We know that very rarely works in a permanent way anyway, or trying to get what we want or need inside from someone else, it is going to work temporarily at best, isn't it? And maybe it's just that I found that my tolerance for trying to do that became non-existent after a while. Like it just felt, the moment I tried to get something from someone else, which we can spend our whole life do, like you said, you know, I want approval from you, or love, or I want you to make me feel safe, or we all have these unconscious motives that we're coming to our relationships with. And when you become conscious of those, that you're trying to get something from someone, it suddenly becomes very intolerable, doesn't it? It's like, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, I want to find what I'm looking for from the inside out rather than outside in. And for me, there was a lot of anger came up when that began to be recognized. Like, why am I still doing this? Why am I still playing this role in this relationship?
Helen, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now I can hear you. I just couldn't hear you at all. Yes.
So just to recap there, you know, it's probably just that you're not wanting to try to get something from outside in anymore. That might be what the anger is about, you know, that kind of, I really want to switch to allowing that to come from the inside out. The approval that I'm wanting can really only satisfy me and be a permanent thing when it's coming from my own self inside.
Yes, yeah, I can see that also. Yes. Yeah, so there is a seeing, so I can see all this, which is a very good thing, which I could not see before and couldn't pinpoint. But sort of sometimes the contemplation just gives me insights and something clears up, but it seems like the more I'm doing, the more it's coming up.
Maybe you are doing too much then. Maybe you're trying too hard from a place of ego. You know, it's a strange thing to say, isn't it, when I'm usually saying, okay, ask this question. But if you find yourself more disturbed by any spiritual practice, and that's not just a one-off thing, if it's becoming something that really seems to be having the opposite effect of what you want, then usually it's a kind of reason for doing it that needs to be checked out. You know, are you contemplating to try to get to an end point, or to get rid of something? Could that be subtly, you know, am I looking into this question so that I'm trying to get rid of something about myself? Or could you switch to a more direct question here? What is it that I want to allow rather than receive? Something like that inside.
I'll just listen to this again. So what is it I allow?
Yeah, what am I, something that I'm trying to get from other beings, like approval or love or security, as an example. For me, it was respect and things like that, you know.
Yeah, same. Yes.
Yeah. And then trying to switching that around. What can I allow rather than try to receive? Because it's that very trying to receive that makes me feel divided in the end, because I'm emphasizing that there's someone else out there for me to get this thing from, whatever it is. And usually it's something subtle, isn't it? Like approval, like you said, or recognition, or something like that. I think yes. Maybe just switching your question to a more effortless one, where you can't struggle with it. So, you know, what can I begin to allow that I feel is lacking right now in my own life? What can I begin to let forth from the inside out rather than the other way around?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yes. Yes, that's good. So I have one more small question. I don't know whether it's so I was listening to one of your videos, and it really with Abdullah, you had a conversation, and you said that our mind doesn't know anything. So it's not that the thought doesn't know awareness, it doesn't know anything in the world also.
Yeah.
So could you elaborate on that? It's please.
It's like Our mind, our thoughts are a representation of reality, a metaphor for reality, or they are a thought about something is never going to actually be the same as the thing itself. And we kind of know that on a general level, but if I try to use my mind to solve any problem at all, eventually, the more awakened you get. But especially if I try to use my mind to reach some awakening endpoint where I'm finally awake, can I ever really achieve that? Because does my mind actually know what's going on? Is knowing about something the same as actually knowing it? Or perhaps clearer said, is thinking about something the same as actually knowing it? Can that ever really bring us that kind of depth of clarity that we're looking for? Because our mind is basically a sequence of thoughts generated based on each other. So what we think about any particular subject is coming from a set storehouse of thoughts that we have on any subject. We've got like a certain number of thoughts that we usually access on a regular basis. We tend to have the same thoughts over and over again. So maybe to hopefully make this clearer, if you wanted to know what it's like to be in a foreign country, let's say you wanted to go visit a particular country, and you bought a book about that country and you learned to speak the language of that country and you ate the food from that country, but you never actually left your own house. If you Googled pictures of that place and you even listen to other people telling you about that place, they've been there and come back. You would know a lot about that country, wouldn't you? But would you actually know what it's really like to be there? You wouldn't have any actual evidence of your own firsthand, would you? Experientially, it would all be knowing about it. And our mind is always talking about something. It's never actually capable of knowing something directly. So we're asking this tool to help us come to deeply know our own self, when all it can do is tell you what it thinks about it, what it thinks about you. And it's kind of, when you really get that, it begins to become more apparent that also mind doesn't know anyone else either. It has if we looked at your mind, or you looked at my mind would have a set of thoughts about you, and your mind would have a set of thoughts about me, neither of which are based on any actual reality. And this wasn't really, massive for me when I began to understand this, that through no fault of its own, mind is just very limited. It's good for navigating in the world, but ultimately everything it's saying is secondhand at best knowledge. It's not an actual knowing. It's only going to ever be, it's like an encyclopedia where you would go to read about something, but you can't actually experience that thing that's written about in the book. Can you get a sense of it?
Yes, it makes sense. But so how, like, if I'm knowing everything and experiencing everything as awareness, then where do they meet, or where do, so what's there's a role of a mind, but so when I'm experiencing myself, there's just myself. When I just look and there's no separate self, there's just myself I'm experiencing. So what's the role of a mind? Where do they meet, and how do the world and they sort of come together?
You always still have access to, our bodies have names, so our mind will remember the names, so that I can remember on some surface level, I can remember the last conversation we had, and I can remember, various things. So there's a whole relative world of labels and names and forms that your mind will function on, and that's fine. You might remember that it's good to be able to remember that you prefer tea over coffee, and you like this food rather than that one, and you don't like going to that place, you want to go to this place instead. All of that's still functioning through the mind, but then there is also this knowing that all of that is kind of based on this surface level knowing, and what's actually true, what's actually going on is something much deeper and much more profound in that. So we can use the mind to kind of remember everything we need to remember, like what time we've got to be at work and when to pick the kids up from school, and to try to help the kids with their homework, all of that stuff. And mind can also really formulate. One of the highest uses of mind is to formulate a really good question, like we were talking about before. Like, what's the difference between knowing about something and knowing? Mind will ask that question, and our experience will be the answer. Or what is reality, or what is love actually? And mind can ask that as a thought form, and then if that's a launching platform. So the highest use of mind is really when we recognize that it cannot get all the answers, but it can ask the most intelligent questions.
Right.
So it has a role after seeing all of this. It's not kind of extinct, but it's something you go to use, rather than it being this constant thing that's talking all the time in the background that you can't shut up,
Right. So one last thing, so is your experience all the time is of the self? Like, you constantly, are you like just the self all the time, or is that the most important thing, like just knowing that self all the time, like unbroken, and the mind comes and goes here and there, the thoughts?
Yeah, if you my experience right now is I don't know anything. I don't know anything at all. Everything is experienced for me as if I'm experiencing it for the first time. So there's a sense that we've never spoken before. And there's also simultaneously a sense of, I can remember the last conversation we had, whenever that was, some class we did, right? And but the overriding, dominating experience for me is just this, I don't know what anything is. I don't want to know about it. So I'm not even knowing about the self or thinking about the self. I'm just open to experience everything. Like right now, I'm experiencing this moment in its fullness as much as I can, rather than focusing on when I'm thinking so much about it. And mind kind of recedes into the background to where you can't really hear it anymore, even if it is talking. You can experience this right now. You can just, if you just drop your ideas about everything, if you forget everything that you've ever learned just for this moment, you'll have the exact same experience as me. The only difference is that that's becoming a continuous thing for me because of the practice that's just been happening here a bit longer than for you. You'll have those moments right now where you just let go of thinking anything. They'll happen quite often during the day.
Yes, and yeah, now it's more and more it's happening. So there's clarity, as if nothing needs to happen, nothing needs to be known. And then this happens as well. We're discussing and all that. So yes, thank you.
You'll find that it becomes just so nice to just experience something or someone, to actually experience them. Like this experience we're all having now in this moment on this in the sanctuary together. What's it like to just experience it without trying to interpret it or get something from it? Normally we're attending this kind of thing, we're trying to understand what someone is saying or trying to get something out of it. And for a long time as human beings, that's very appealing, isn't it? Because I want to get somewhere. But after a while, it's like, what's it like to just show up for this moment here? And what does that feel like when I do that? Can I just let go for this moment because it feels nice? And for no other reason than it feels just so content, it makes me feel so content to just stop trying to do anything with this moment here, which is back to the controlling again that we were talking about. This is why your question came up about not mind. Trying to get somewhere is all based on what our mind thinks is happening.
Yes. But with the teacher, I've noticed that I automatically just gets into a role of a student. That's another thing I need to really look into. Like this is a teacher and there's me as a roles, and then automatically there is.
But if we stop there, and that's necessary for a while, but then those roles, but then there'll become this urge, and this is a really good conversation we're having. I'm really enjoying it. There'll become this urge to drop even those roles. Like, I'm not teacher, you're not student. There's just the one being and all of these bodies here sharing this moment. And really all that's happening is two bodies are making noises in the silence. And we're calling that a conversation, aren't we? We're calling that a student and teacher, but it's not really, is it? It's just kind of, if we drop those labels as well, we're just here in this moment, as this moment then. And everything takes on a different quality then. It becomes so much more alive and so much more exciting to experience. It's like you finally go and watch a full movie. You've only ever seen the trailer for it, and the trailer's in black and white, and you go and watch the big 3D Technicolor thing finally, with the surround sound and all that stuff and the popcorn and everything. It's trying to put words to something that you can't describe, but maybe you can get a taste of it.
Yes.
And more you'll find, I just don't want to be a student anymore. I just want to be whatever this is right now here.
Yeah.
There you go. You got it now, right?
It's beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Don't try too hard with anything, especially not awakening. Yeah. Good to talk to you.
Thanks. Bye.
Anyone else like to ask anything or share something? It was a good conversation we had. Everyone's busy, just enjoying the moment. So anything that anyone would like to ask me, or you want me to talk about in more detail or go into?
Hey.
Hello, is that Katie? Is it?
Yeah.
Katie, sorry, Katie.
I could ask something.
Yeah.
Releasing of the idea of guilt.
So just give me a little bit more to work with. What exactly? Can you give me more detail of what you're asking?
Yeah. So I'm practicing the Course in Miracles lessons, and I have this idea of unworthiness in my mind, and I think it's about releasing the idea of guilt. And so I had this experience of, I saw that I dream all the dream characters are dreaming this idea of having a separate identity and as a sleeping son of God, and still the next day or the next hour I still felt guilt.
Yeah.
So I wonder, how can I make things like that useful?
So in this experience, this moment, this seeing, you had this realization that we're all dreaming that we're separate beings, separate to each other. And then, is that right? Yeah, you kind of had this seeing of somehow that there isn't really, you aren't really separate as you thought. And
Yes.
then, yeah, so then, that experience or that knowing seems to go away, and something, our usual state of consciousness seems to come back, which is, I am a separate being. And along with that separateness comes fear and unworthiness and guilt and shame and all of that, doesn't it? Anger and all of that. So if you have seen then that you're not separate really, that the thought entity, that the picture you had of yourself in your mind is not really who you are. And then later, this suggestion is given to you that you have done something or said something wrong or bad or something to feel guilty for, basically. Can you see then that this is showing you, this could be showing you, here's where you're still believing in that separate being. Here's where you're imagining and dreaming again. So we have a moment where we see clearly, and then we tend to fall back asleep again for a while at first. That happens to all of us. So I have this seeing and it's really powerful, and oh my goodness, I've never been separate to anything. And then 2 minutes or 2 hours or 2 days later, 2 minutes it was for me, I'm back dreaming myself to be a separate being, back in the stories of all of that. And, the really convincing stories that I've done something, or I'm not good enough, or there's some mistake I've made, or kind of even deeper than that, isn't it? That there's just something wrong with me. I fell from grace and I'm inherently flawed, something like that, some kind of really deep idea inside. So you can ask then if you can remember in those moments when that's happening, this guilt, is this true for me now? Is this story that I'm listening to right now? And it'll be something along those lines about guilt, wanted that you've done something wrong, or you didn't do something you were supposed to, or you said something that you shouldn't have, or something like that. Is that still true now? Are you still going to 100% agree with that now that you've seen that that's not actually who you are? So life happens after the seeing, so that you can then apply what you've seen. And normally we would just accept that, yeah, this is true, and then we feel really guilty, we'd feel really terrible. But now you can ask this question if you want to. Is this still true for me now, this story? Can you get a sense that it feels different since you've had that seeing when guilt comes up? Yeah.
It reminds me of it's what Jesus said, you will recognize the truth and it will set you free.
Yeah, absolutely. But to have that freedom permanently, we have to look at where we're still believing in our stories. And this is one that we all believe in, isn't it? Even after a seeing. For me, even after many seeings, I was still believing, going back to automatically without even realizing that had happened. Like if you wake up and at nighttime and you think, oh, I'll get up in a few minutes, I need, the alarm's going to go off, and before you know it, the alarm's going off and you fall back asleep again without realizing. It's kind of like that, isn't it? A little bit. And then we have to kind of question that becomes so painful to think of ourselves as a separate being, that it nudges us to ask, is this really true for me now? Actually, am I going to still agree to this, given what I've just seen and experienced about what's actually real? And then as you question it, it begins to recede, it begins to go. You can't believe that story as much the next time it shows up, and then less and less and less, until it's just a voice in your head that has no impact. It doesn't create all this strong emotion inside. So what's the story that you're believing when that guilt comes up? And can you question that? It's not something you have to answer here, but something you can look into.
When I say that there's something unwhole in me, I make myself again I put myself again into this body.
Yeah.
And
Is that true?
no.
Is that true now for you? It felt true, and it might still feel slightly true. Your body's telling you, some part of me is still buying this story, but some part of me is also starting to really see that was never true, actually. And which one am I going to put more attention on now? Am I going to go with the story, or am I going to question that?
I feel limited to this body, but and when I have these experiences of not being the body, I feel like that's what I really am. And yeah, then I feel asleep, and then I think I am this body. So it's shifting.
But it's not anything that you're doing wrong. It's happening so that you can disassociate yourself from these stories now. Until we see, oh gosh, I'm still believing this, then only then can we question that. It feels like, I had this beautiful seeing and now it's disappeared and I'm right back into this horrible, place. But if we can question that, what's the story I'm currently believing, and is it true still? And then, has it ever been true, actually? You can, just because we've had a seeing of what we really are, doesn't automatically rewire our thought process. It'd be great if it did, but it's not like that for most of us. We have to then look at the stories that come up. So it will feel like I've just completely lost that seeing. I've gone right back into my old identification with my body and mind. When that happens, it'll feel like you're right back where you started, But it's just a question. It's giving you an opportunity to really, am I going to automatically go back with this again? What am I going to do about it now, this time, when it shows up this time?
So if the next time when the idea of unworthiness comes, I should ask myself, does it feel true to me? Like, does it feel,
can this be true for me now? Can this be true? I've seen myself to be something completely different to what I thought I was.
Yeah.
And am I going to keep on giving my wholehearted agreement to this idea that I'm not good enough, or I'm unworthy or something? Even the most, I'm not ready for awakening, I'm not worthy of awakening, all of those ideas we must question now, having seen, or even before we see, we can start, and as you do that more and more, this naturally clear, pristine state of awareness will just begin to break through more and more and more, or Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It will just begin to be your normal state. What we've been living in is a very abnormal state, but the whole of humanity is doing it, so we think it's normal,
I get a sense that when I see that in truth I can't do anything wrong in this dream, it's like, what will happen then? It's like everything I thought I knew will break away. I think like I can do, this is not real, this is
yeah. And the power of the clarity of those seeings, even if they're only for a second, a nanosecond, it begins to change everything for you. And I began to see, like, I've been wrong about everything. Everything I thought about myself and everyone else, I've been wrong. And some part of my mind hated that, right? It's like, yeah, but you're saying that everything I've believed is not true. And but eventually that becomes a beautiful thing. Everything I've been blaming myself for, judging myself for, everything I won't forgive about myself, it's all utter nonsense, actually. When I see I have never moved or changed from that inherent perfection that is the divine self, never. And that builds our willingness then to question even more. We get even more excited in that. What if none of this has been true, actually? about myself or anyone else for that matter? You know, what if I've just been living in this virtual reality inside my head and it's never been so, never been that way? What if there's never been anything wrong with you ever and never could be? What would that be like? You know, just to question the thoughts when they come up like that, the big stories that we all have. Usually some kind of self-judgment or something, isn't it? How does that make you feel when you think about that?
I want to have a recording of what you said right now.
But you're feeling it right now, aren't you, a little bit? You're just not really buying any stories right now. We can just drop stories right now, all of us.
I feel like expanding.
Yeah. And of course you want to feel that more often. And of course you eventually want to stay like that. And of course you want that to be effortless. And that's why we question, you know, this, just to move away from the stories. They have a kind of magnetic pull, but it's only a habit to go to the story rather than reality. And we can change any habit with a consistent questioning of practice. And once you get a taste of just how nice it feels, of course you weren't willing to put that effort in, that consistency. And that's what's happening for you now, isn't it? You're starting to, I want this and I want this more. And I want it all the time, actually, if that's possible, which it is.
I'm so happy you tell me that, remind me that.
Enjoy it. And when it seems to go, don't blame yourself. It's just the next thing is coming up for questioning. The next story, that's all that's happening. You haven't lost it. It'll just be, here's the next thing I need to examine, the way I used to see myself. Every time you move away from a story, you get so much more energy back and peace and everything, and wholeness and clarity and wisdom and love and compassion and all of that. It gets faster and faster then because you're willing to question anything. And you begin to, it flips on its head instead of these momentary seeings of what you really are, punctuating this whole long suffering, you know, waking state. It flips the other way around so that you're feeling really, really good most of the time. And occasionally something will just come up to question. So. Wonderful.
And there's another question I have. Oh, it's more an observation. I thought that for some reason I think that observation can be useful for me. I saw that I like the people in front of me are empty, and I like the course is telling them, I give them a role to play out.
Yeah.
And I didn't see them as what they are, and then I put them to chains and let them play karmic roles, and put myself also to put me on chains.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes clearer and clearer that if I'm not what I thought I was at all, then neither is anyone else. If I am already and always have been that divine self, if I never fell from grace, then neither did anyone else. And you kind of take a quantum leap then in your awakening that everything is inherently divine. Everything. There's no exceptions. Everything and everyone. They might be expressing that divinity. It might be limited in its expression. You know, it might be expressing itself as a lower state of consciousness, but the source is still the same. And it's only expressing itself in a lower way in some human being because they're very caught up in their stories still, which nobody can be blamed for, because we've all been caught as long as we're caught. And, you said everything is empty, you know, and I've just been projecting very powerfully my stories onto them. We all do it all the time, of course, you know, until we don't. And what's it like then to experience that person without any stories? What's it like to experience yourself without any stories? What's it like to experience the world without any stories? It's something to play around with inside.
Yes.
Have fun with that.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, nice.
Anyone else like to ask anything? We have a few more minutes. Or to share something? The time's gone really quick. Is anybody struggling with anything? Having a challenge, or they had an epiphany or an insight? I'd love to hear about them. Maybe we can do a quick meditation to take us to the end of the hour then, which will seem to be the theme of this session anyway, of just being here without our stories. It would be lovely to just rest here. So if you want to join in, just feel free to, you can close your eyes or leave them open, whichever you prefer. And let's just for a moment or for 10 minutes or whatever, just be willing to set aside our stories. That doesn't mean we have to empty our mind, because that's not possible, but just let's cultivate a curiosity. What's it like to experience this moment without any stories being believed in? What is this moment actually? Can we just be here together now? Let's just share this wonderful time and be present with each other, for each other. Just letting that silence, that pristine awareness come to the forefront of our experience. We're just here. And our mind might be doing its thing. It's okay. We just let it do its thing. We don't need to control that. What's it like to be here together without trying to understand anything and without trying to get anywhere? What's actually our experience when we just stop? And although it may look like awakened beings have arrived, they've really just given up traveling in that way. None of our stories are the ultimate truth. And just being here like this, we begin to experience a fuller experience of ourselves, a deeper, richer, a quiet depth of this moment. So what is actually here right now? What is this here? Just maybe we don't even need an answer. We're just kind of curious and open and just putting down our stories for now. What if there wasn't any further for you to go? What if there was never anything wrong with you? What if you were never separate to anything and no need to undo anything? There's a quietness here. And a rest, contentment. just free already here like this with me, just free right now. Nowhere to get to. And if you pick up a story, you just drop it when you realize. Pick up another one, just drop it. It really doesn't matter. What do you experience when you just stop? What does that feel like? There isn't any goal to reach. You're already there. We're just coming to see that clearer and clearer. That before, during, and after my stories, I am as I've always been. You are as you've always been. Home and free. We can never reach worthiness because we were never unworthy. We can never reach awakening because we were never unawakened. We can't merge into the self because we already are the self. From time to time, we'll pick up some idea out of habit only. And you can just let it go as soon as we can. Return back to our equanimity, our peace. Just being here, just showing up becomes utterly delicious, just completely here, present. There's just your body, your thoughts moving around inside you, the awareness. Not trying to get anywhere, not trying to change anything. Just being here. Fulfilled from the inside out. Overflowing. And we never reached anything, never achieved anything, just coming to recognize where we already are, clearer each day, simpler each day. I'm just here. And if you've picked up a story, you can simply put it down again. Just by being curious as to what's already here. Just choosing to be like this more and more. Enjoying how it feels to just be here. Realizing that even when we think we are bound, we are still completely free. Thank you. Namaste. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you tonight or today, wherever you are, whatever time it is. And I hope that if I don't see you again before, that you have a wonderful Christmas and really a second coming of Christ, what Christmas really means. That's Christ consciousness within your own being, a return to your original state more and more often, that coming home to Christ appearing in and as you completely. Thank you. Thanks, Rhoda.